It's time for us to once again turn your attention to our Lighthouse project. For this session, we welcome the team from Estonia, who are delighted to be with you today to tell you more about how their approach can be transferred to our schools to help us achieve national agenda targets. Join me in welcoming Team Estonia to the stage. Ranju Anand, Andrew Gibbs, Sasha Krab, and Mirza.
Can I just say, first of all, we're not from Estonia. What I knew about Estonia before we started this project, you could have written on an Estonian stamp. And it's been an interesting 4 or 5 months. Obviously, we're all principals. I'm very quickly introductions. My name's Andrew. Andrew here is I'm from the principal of Dubai English-speaking school, Dubai English-speaking college. One of the oldest UK curriculum school in Dubai, 54 years old, and the college was begat out of the primary school academic city 10 years ago. And both are in great shape. I'm very proud of being principal of both. I was head teacher at the secondary school for 3 years before being lucky enough to be asked to be principal of the 2 schools. And on my right is
Ranju Anand. I'm the principal of the University School in January. I've been in Dubai for 20 years, and I've seen a whole cycle of professional development here in Dubai. So I've looked at various roles around in my career, teaching career and the leadership career. And here, Sasha.
Sasha Krab, I'm principal of Victory Heights Primary School, which is in Sports City. Fledgling Primary School, just going into its 3rd year. We have 280 children, and now we've got over 630. And we're still very new to gathering data and information about the national agenda, so it's been very useful to work over the last couple of months talking to colleagues from various different curriculums and different experiences about how we can continue to improve as a school here in Dubai.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Mirza from the South Islamic School. We are running all English curriculum, and we have about 1,700 students. And it's a very old school here within this curriculum. We have been together for some couple of months to work on this project. And we hope we will be able to review the information what we can get this out of Estonia for our language.
say where the Arabic translation of all this is. It's a presentation that we've got on the website, is that right?
Does anyone need any headsets? We've got them.
Because our presentation will be in English. Everything will be in English in case there is. I think Mr. Fine on that you'll be helping them in Arabic.
Yes. So if anyone has a question in Arabic, you can ask me and Mr. Well will explain Arabic for the people asking me.
So just context-wise, we're not going to go on the stage, by the way, because there are so few of you here. It's just a bit us and them. But I'm going to ask you to do some thinking and speak to each other at some point in this presentation. So about 5-6 months ago, we were tasked with, we had no choice about the country, and I guess if you get something like the United States or the UK, it would be somewhat more familiar territory. But we were given the task of working together, and that's been interesting in itself because we come from an eclectic mix of schools. Mine's not for profit, some people work for big organisations, some people work for individuals with schools, and they all bring competing pressures. And I didn't realise my neighbour here in the Islamic school, in fact, his school's placed at the top of the hill next to the 611 academic city and overlooks our school. I've often looked at that building and I'm ashamed to say I never even realised it was a school. So it took this project for us to be brought together, and we have promised to do some visits of each other's schools. So just to contextualise again, the reason we're here, the national agenda targets, has many other countries above our own here in Dubai, and someone came up with the sound idea of asking, well, why are they right where they are, and why are where we are where we are? The more I look into this, the more I think that there's some governmental, societal, cultural issues that impinge upon a country's capacity to improve. But there are some common denominators that I think are transferable from this very remote from where we are country in Northern Europe. Question one for a sweep was going to be, what's the capital city of Estonia? But it's on the... it is telling, yes. It's on there. I think it's just to exemplify my ignorance. I didn't even be good on flags, be good on capital cities, but can anyone tell me for a bonus sweep what colour the national flag of Estonia is? If you get two of the three, you get one sweep. You get all three, you get two sweets. Anyone get two of those colours at all? Yeah.
I think it's blue, white, and red.
Blue, white and red, we've got two. It's blue, white and black. But I'll sort you out with some confectionery afterwards, sir. Pardon? Maybe half a sweet. Just a little generous of you. The other thing I asked myself was actually coming to the presentation this morning to school, rather, before I came here. Do I know anyone that's famous from Estonia? Does anyone know a famous Estonian? Because I didn't. Even when I found out or went onto the internet and looked at all these famous people, allegedly, I'd never heard of any of them whatsoever. Anyone know a famous Estonian person? So this country is shrouded in mystique and mystery. So quite where we went with peeling back the veneers of stuff about finding out about its education system, was a challenge in itself, because it's a country that none of us had any association with whatsoever. So some basic facts that have been there for you to look at. Basically, the population says 1.3, it's probably nearer 1.5 now, 65% spoken Estonian, 35% Russian. Huge emphasis on the purity and preserving the sanctity of the Estonian language, which again has some resonance with here, and obviously the importance of Arabic. And again, something that's commensurate with the agenda of the KHDA at the moment, led by Dr. Abdullah, the whole emphasis on well-being, health, mindfulness, if you like. There is a real sense of a package surrounding children in Estonia. A number of years ago, they had a huge emphasis on upgrading their health service, particularly looking at child mental health and children's rights. In other words, putting the softer stuff around children to enable them to be happy individuals. There is a very strong, this again leads to other dialogues about other things, there's a really, really strong commitment from the taxpayer to fund education. It's thought of and regarded as being very, very important. So the most important priorities, they were subsumed with teachers of a generation for whom rote learning was the only way they thought was a credible way of teaching. And they've come on a very rapid journey to embrace pedagogical developments. They have a teaching workforce that is very well paid, comparatively speaking, in Estonia. And that brings up a question that I would have about the Estonian system. To what extent is it intrinsic worth? To what extent is it extrinsic worth? And could you apply the same question to our teachers here in Dubai? To what extent do they work for the money? To what extent do they work for the love of the job and that kind of indefinable, almost, sense of moral purpose with young people? That's a very strong feature of the way that Estonian teachers as a group operate. Higher education, very strong in both vocational and academic structures. What I did notice was the lack of choice up to about 16, very homogenous way. The curriculum is very set. huge emphasis, as I said before, on Estonian as a second language, Russian, mathematics and science, to the exclusion of many, many other things. You can see their cross-curricular work is very important, and also sustainability, which resonates with some of the things we saw this morning. On to, who's next?
Me. What we realized is that when we were discussing and researching about the country, since we had no knowledge and information about it, there were a lot of things which were very strong, and on the other side, as Andrew just said, that there were restrictions on the structure. The structure of education was very restricted, and hence we were wondering, does it really go in favor or not so? So there were a lot of discussions and debates, lots of thoughts emerging. What is it that, if we are comparing it with Dubai, what is it we are doing and that's working well for our children, and what is it that we are not doing and can we implement that here? So there are a lot of questions left with, and there is so much to know about it, and we are only presenting a very small part of what we discussed and what we read. If you're looking at that, the first change that they brought, a major change, was they set their own national curriculum. So there was an Estonian national curriculum, which every school, most of the schools are public schools. There are very few, I think a very small percentage, don't quote me, but I think 3 to 5% of the schools which are private. Rest of all are public schools, so they all follow the same national curriculum. There are some schools, as Andrew said, which 65% roughly are following Estonian language system, and others are following Russian language system, and there is a diverse difference in data from two schools. There's a huge difference in the two schools' attainment levels. The teacher training was another one with a lot of emphasis on that. They've developed their own program to develop teachers, to train them with the technology. Huge emphasis on science and technology. Science is actually, all three sciences are compulsory subjects for all children up to the age of 16. So that again makes it restricted, and it doesn't give scope for children who may have other interests. However, they can take other subjects, but they still have to keep sciences as their main streams. Which is why we thought it fits in well with today's theme of STEM, and how the movement from STEM to STEAM would help Estonia achieve better grades. So again, students, because technology was integrated into their system, there was a lot of emphasis on student management, students to go towards that, use technology wisely and for their own learning. And that actually brought in a lot of maturity, a lot of responsibility of their own learning, which actually worked very well. And Estonians are very, they are people who are very much social. They like it. They like a lot of family scene. They spend a lot of time with their children. They do emphasize a lot on moral values. And education comes as a top priority for most of Estonians. So there is that inclination, there is that bent that they want, and there is a will that they want their children to do very well. What are the main reasons for this success? As they implemented a common curriculum, there's a comprehensiveness of that curriculum. The teachers are all qualified, they're trained. Surprisingly, their questions are about sustainability. There are a lot of teachers at the moment who want to do it as a job because they prefer to be in this kind of work. However, they've noticed in their research that there are not many children opting to be in the teaching job in universities at the moment. So would this be sustainable 5 years, 10 years from now is a question mark there. Again, the curriculum, I think a big part of the system is, even though they have set the guidelines for the national curriculum, there is total autonomy for teachers to decide the content. So there are guidelines on the wider guidelines on the curriculum. It's very broad and balanced curriculum, except that science and technology is a compulsory part of it. However, within schools, they can have their own curriculum set for different tier groups. So that end of a certain age, they should have completed these topics whenever they want to do it. So there is autonomy there. And then at the end of secondary school, there are external exams. So then they are measured against those. So schools know that they can't miss out on certain things because at certain part of the schooling, they will have an external standardized exam across the country, and they have to do well on that. PISA scores were really a surprise, and perhaps a lot of countries had to look up to them to see what have they done to change that. What is it? And that is why all this study comes in. So if you look at it, in science especially, they're one of the top countries in the world. And if you look at science, latest results, 2012 was the latest figure available, 541, and see the jump they moved from there. So 10 years now, national curriculum is in place. In the first instance, their scores went up tremendously, and in the second year as well. And the next results, when they're out, they are expecting a huge leap, because there's a lot of technology being put in very recently, which was not there last 2009 or 2012. Over to
Well, two of my friends have just talked about the reasons and the background about the education system in Estonia. What we can see is the science is very strong. I mean, it's their strength in Estonia, because a lot of emphasis has been said that's given to this schools over here. One good reason what I read in this, about Estonia is the independent way the schools are given the reason to work on their syllabus, and they can do their own curriculum in their own style. There is no interference as such. And another good thing about is the teachers' training. And there is not just orientation, but there is always reorientations going on. And the results are keep changing, and the monitoring is very much over there. Estonian science teachers are sufficiently oriented and shape students' higher order thinking. This is something which many schools over here are trying to come in, that higher order thinking to be implemented in science classes. There the teachers are really focused in their work, and appointment of the teachers, this is very important over there, is given high preference. These teachers are really checked very well, and their love of profession so much over there. And the funding, the support which they get from the government is very, very high. The literacy rates, what we have seen in Estonia is 100%, both male and female. So that's very, very surprising, such a small country with 1.5 million population. The scientific inquiry, as more student-centered approach, students are given open hand, and teachers just give, they float the ideas and wait for this, and they have a lot of patience to work with students. And that is something is really working with us. So there is no confinement of students and there is no timeline as such that we have to cover this curriculum or complete this kind of work in a certain time of year. The interactive science teaching, as we said, science is given a lot of importance. And another surprising thing what I read about Estonia is even students as early as of 7 and 8 years are allowed to use smartphones in their classrooms. They are asked, they bring smartphones to the school and they are asked to play with it, they try to explore over it. So this is how the mental development and focus is given. And career counseling about science and the future in science is always been given to the students. That's very good. Strong academic approach, as I said, is a lot of emphasis given at the time of appointing the teachers who are really highly qualified, and teachers who are in this profession are very much given the preference. And as I said, monetary benefits are very, very high over there for the teachers. Clear and well-structured classrooms management. Well, the design or the open environment in the classroom where student-centered education is going on. Teachers are just work as more as guides. They open the doors for education for the students. They explore and they work on it. And this is a very open kind of a society. And parenting, as we discussed earlier in one of the slides before, that parents' support is really very, very high over there. Education is valued very high in Estonia. Information technology, as we were talking, smartphone and robotics, these are all playing a lot of important role, and that's why science, reading, and mathematics are the students of there. Estonia are really doing very well in science and maths. And national strategy, though they are giving open hand to the schools to work on the curriculum, the teachers, they are not given any room for this thing that they can all over this thing, but still the students are given a lot of work to do, and interference is very less. an education system supported by high-tech, high-skill and high-wage economy. Of course, the support of the government is too high, and every student is given the choice, and there is, the funding is too high. All the students, they go to the school, and there is not a single student who's sitting at home, because as most of the schools are public schools, and governmental support is very high economically. So these are some of the factors what we feel is really bringing up good results in both TIMSS and PISA in Estonia. Thank you very much.
As leaders, obviously here in Dubai, we know that we've got targets with the national agenda for all the different curriculums as a bunch of colleagues working together that caused us to enter into a lot of debate about, okay, so we found out, it's obviously very relevant here, excuse me, very relevant here today for what works about using aspects of STEM within our schools. What we wanted to do as a group was to look at, okay, so it's working very well in Estonia, it's causing a lot of these effects. How can we actually transfer this back into our schools in Dubai with national agendas and inspections, etc., and wanting to show that we're progressing. So during our research, we looked at different clips, and we found this clip that we wanted to share with you about how to use science and technology practically in the classroom. And what we want to do in the next part of this presentation is to plant some seeds, very relevant for the conversation and the brilliant speech that was we had this morning, about planting some seeds about how we can in Dubai use this to affect the sustainability and for hooking IT as an interest within our children, whether they be 3 or all the way up to secondary school.
Old, but appearances can deceive. When it comes to embracing technology early, Estonia's been showing the way. It's 9 a.m. at the Pelgulinna Gymnasium, a Tallinn state school, and for these 7 and 8-year-olds, it's time for robotics.
It teaches them that everything is programmable. Our goal is to give them experience, what is the future like will be, because they are the inventors of the future. Are you enjoying this lesson? Is it good fun? Kas teile meeldib see tund täna? They're saying that it's very interesting and they can think, they use their brain.
As in many Estonian schools, children here don't just use computers, they are taught their language. This class is generating QR codes for use with smartphones.
Some of these kids are just 7, and introducing them to smartphones at such a young age, it's very early, isn't it?
When they are going to the kindergarten, they already have smartphones. When they come to school, everybody has smartphones. We should teach them to do it properly.
Schools in Estonia have been online since the late 1990s. The idea of teaching young kids programming was embraced here earlier and more wholeheartedly than in many other countries. And this digital drive hasn't just come from teachers or IT companies, it's come from the very top.
The president himself, Thomas Hendrik Ilves, was a government minister in the 1990s who foresaw the digital revolution early.
I started pushing for interneting all of the schools, getting all schools connected and with computers, which came out of my own experience. I had a fantastic mathematics teacher who taught a small group of us in my school to program in 1968.
In the UK, amongst many parents, there's this fear, I think it's fair to say, about how much digital time kids should have. Do you think that fear is misplaced?
Well, I don't know what the average amount of time spent watching television is in the UK, but certainly that's strictly passive. Far happier to see children interacting with computers than I am to see children watching television.
Cambridge-based Eben Upton launched the Raspberry Pi 2 years ago, a low-cost computer aimed at encouraging children to program. He believes the new computing curriculum for English schools, with its emphasis on programming, is long overdue.
We've had a real focus on teaching people how to be computer users. We've been teaching people how to use Office applications. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that is important. Those are skills that people are going to need in their daily lives. But what we're not teaching children, what we haven't been teaching children, are those high-value skills, how to actually produce something with a machine rather than just consuming something that other people have produced.
Estonia's most famous digital success is Skype. Set up 10 years ago, it's transformed global communication. In Estonia's classrooms, the digital entrepreneurs of tomorrow are already learning their trade.
So back to Andrew's question, if you didn't know something that famous that came out of Estonia, Skype did, it's something that you can go home and share with a bit of trivia over dinner later. So what we want you to do now is there's some post-its that should be coming around from some of our younger colleagues. And we just wanted you to have a discussion, because something that came out of our group, which we found very useful over the last couple of months, has definitely been about how we can transfer the skills of this research project and how we in Dubai can work together, not just in isolation, about paying it forward in terms of our curriculums, because we're all at different levels with QR coding and computing and facilities, and we've just found that out of the group that we've worked in.